Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Echo Store Microsoft Minute. My name is Steve Caprio, and I'm joined by Chuck Salvo. Today, our topic of conversation is going to be a little bit around device management, Intune, and more specifically, relatively new feature from Microsoft called the Microsoft Management Platform-Cloud, or P-C. This is currently running in conjunction with the traditional model that's been used for Intune and other device configuration, which is called the OMA-DM, or the Open Mobile Alliance Device Management approach and frame and model. The reason we're going to talk about it today is some of the things that frustrate a lot of customers that we talk to, especially with Intune, is that it's great that Intune's included in EMS E3 and inside the bundle for M365 E3. There are some fantastic management capabilities there and some great conditional access and security that you can do based on the fact that devices are enrolled in Intune. But when it comes to actually managing the configuration on the devices, it can be a bit frustrating. I think in order to understand where those frustration points are, covering what the traditional model does and how it works, and how this new model stands to change that will instruct us on how we can benefit from this going forward. In the traditional OMA-DM model, devices are contacting a management server, in this case Intune, to request policy updates. Upon receiving those policies, the device applies them, and then it reports the compliance back to the server on its compliance status with those desired policies. After that, it just runs on a scheduled sync. So it's essentially polling the management server in order to get any updates to the policy. The problem here is that it can lead to delays in policy enforcement because let's say you made a change and the sync, which typically happens every 8 hours, isn't going to happen for another 7 hours. Sometimes you want that config to push sooner. And also, sometimes it just like flat out doesn't work right now. And there's good examples around like VPN, like if a user changes something around the VPN server name, you can wait maybe 3 days and the policy still isn't updating it, even though it has synced recently. So that's some of those frustrations around, hey, I applied this, and for a bunch of days, it didn't seem to work, even with successful syncs. And then all of a sudden it came up, right? I think everyone who's managed any Intune devices has seen something along those lines before. The way that MMPC is different is it's using what's called the declared configuration model. So it shifts basically, just the best word to describe it is just proactive and continuous. So essentially the desired state definition is provided by administrators. So that's the configuration that should always be desired for the devices. There's a new service called the WinDC service, or the Windows Declared Configuration Service, on that device. And it basically ensures that there's no deviation from that declared policy. So as the device maybe shifts, it's not waiting on a polling to pull down the policy again and then apply it or make sure it's compliant with that policy. It has the configuration stored. Any sort of drift would result in an immediate correction to that. So I think, just from the model standpoint of how it's going to be functioning, you're going to end up with more efficiency there, at least for corrections. For net new pushes, it's a similar thing, right? Because you're replacing the desired configuration on the device. At that point, the device would automatically, because it's a new config in there, be out of line with the desired configuration, and it would just go ahead and do that. It wouldn't be waiting on the next sync or the policy. So again, the most effective way to describe it is that it's just moving to a more proactive and continuous model for managing these devices.
Steve,
Chuck, I know you've probably ended up at a number of customers when we've been doing these where it can be frustrating to manage, but also if you're not sure where your compliance is, you're not really sure what the security of your environment looks like, and you start to not trust it. That's when mistakes can be made, or just generally you're just on edge about what's going on the devices.
Absolutely. And I think we see so many customers that are engaging using Intune for that device management. That's just going to make that process that much better. Like you say, there's nothing more annoying than being like, I deployed something. It looks like it's synced, but it didn't work. So this capability is a huge upgrade. And that polling happens. So basically the policy gets pushed out there and the service is polling every minute, or it's really like, all right, we can check the machine. Hey, the user made a change here. No, we can go back to that desired state immediately.
Yeah, it's not even doing like a polling. It's basically, it's got the desired configuration stored on the device. So it doesn't have to go reach out. It's just the service is constantly comparing the device settings against that service, against that desired config, and it'll replace it. For net new, it is going to require a synchronization, but it will be more fluid. So when you deploy new policy and it gets there, it'll just essentially pull down that desired config. And then it's not about the matching or downloading the policy or matching it and then reporting compliance back. The config is on the device, and then the device is basically ensuring that it matches that config.
Gotcha. Are there any changes in the Intune interface to turn this on and implement it? Or is it more just all on the back end?
Yeah, not yet. It's just that some of the things are in conjunction, like rolling out together. So I'm actually going to bring up a screen now. This is the way that it's technically running today. It's a little bit in the weeds because it's technically doing what's called a linked enrollment, or it's working in tandem. So right now, every enrollment that's happening from an Intune perspective is still enrolling in the traditional OMA-DM model, like to the MDM server to Intune. It could be another one too, by the way. Linked enrollment supports other management interface MDM servers, but it's also doing the similar enrollment to the declared configuration server here. And so there are certain policies or CSPs that are available in declared configuration now. I think a lot of them are along the lines of security baselines, which is helpful because I think some of those are the ones that typically have had issues like pushing down right away. There's some other ones in resource or access profiles. So I gave the example of the VPN issue before. VPN profiles are able to be configured through MMPC. Wi-Fi profiles, or at least those are the ones that are slated to move that direction. So there's still some change happening here on the Microsoft side with some of these being ported over to or available in this new model. But there's no change right now on the Intune side about how you're doing these device configurations up there.
So for the end users, for the Intune people out there, it's just an improvement, right? It's just the devices are going to sync better, faster, quicker, and support a device. The desired state configuration versus a 8-hour poll, and maybe it works.
Correct. Yeah, I think like this was released September 2024, so it's not brand new, but that was like general availability, right? And so they've been continuing to iterate on it, but there's still a lot to be pushed out or rolled into here. But the idea that people should be having in their head is that if their thought was, hey, I got to find a different solution for Intune here because I don't really see a path where this is going to work for me. A good example is, we see some customers that have adopted RMM tools like a NinjaOne or something to address where like the configuration stuff kind of falls down a bit. And NinjaOne does a whole bunch of other things that maybe you need it for. So if the customer had NinjaOne already, then it solves like a nice little gap. But if you were looking at an RMM to say, I just need instant configurations, detecting drift in real time, those types of things that weren't possible before MMPC was announced here, you might be able to avoid that added cost. Or if the only reason you've already added something like NinjaOne is to do that, there's a event date on the horizon where you might be able to get rid of that because Intune would solve those problems for you. So I think the big call out here is just we wanted to make people aware that this is available now, and to go and look into it for themselves and see what this would look like. And also don't make decisions in a vacuum about the rest of what you're doing for device management, knowing that this is a part of the roadmap and that it should be something that fixes a lot of the frustrations here. That's the whole deal here, is not that this is a end state, like a lot of things with Microsoft, right? There's a announcement that something's generally available, that something is cool, but it has its issues, or it's in its state of iteration. And we're probably going through that state of iteration now where you'll start to see more and more of these things become available, and maybe some changes to the admin center if it needs to.
But definitely a stable offering for Microsoft, something you can push into production.
Correct. Yeah, it's already available. You can check. There's a bunch of good articles out there. I think maybe we can link to some of them after this about how to check the linked enrollment is taking place. You can go check in the registry even for the types of categories that are in there for MMPC, like what types of solutions are going to be rolled out if they aren't already available. So those types of documents exist. And again, it isn't stable. Like you can get this configured. And there actually isn't really much configuration here today. If you're running a new enough version of Windows and you're enrolling users in Intune, the linked enrollment is happening with the MMPC here already.
Nice. Awesome.
So I think with that, if you guys have any questions along those lines or want to talk about what's going on within your Intune configuration or just device management in general, definitely here to help with those types of things. We'll maybe do a follow-up on this as things start to get a little more fleshed out, so we could talk about maybe seeing it, some specific improvements, or we can actually maybe show a video of kind of what it looks like. I think we'll maybe try to follow up with those types of behaviors. But again, thanks everybody for joining and listening. And if, as always, we'll post some links at the end here to keep everybody up to speed about what the next sessions are going to be. And thanks again.